would you be okay with it then?
No, I was never.
Then this is another thing too. Don't use an argument and pretend like it is a necessary part of your argument if once it's rolled back, you don't care. So when you're repeating over and I knew she was gonna say this too. When you're repeating over and again, like, oh, well, they don't have legal authority. Oh, they don't have legal authority. Okay, well, let's say that they had the legal authority. Would it be okay then? Well, no, it still wouldn't be okay. Like, wait, well, then why the fuck?
The White House and Pfizer are sitting in a fucking room going, Biden's sitting there going, how can I look better to the American public after I left all those fucking people in Afghanistan? Oh, shit.
Oh my God.
The problem, though, that I really have is that although you say you're not anti-vax, and I know that you yourself are not, it seems that a lot of the times your rhetoric is getting on the line of being effectively anti-vax. And I say that because it seems like you play defense for a lot of anti-vax narratives.
It's not that I play defense for their narratives. I do try to be
understand them.
charitable. I do want to respect personal autonomy. I very, very heavily agree with that. As you know, like I'm not really a conservative. I mean, I might be a little bit right-leaning center, even like somewhat libertarian, but I am like by definition politically homeless. Like I'm all over the fucking place. So, you know, but my audience is mainly conservative. And so, yeah, so I've spent a lot of time around, you know, people who I can really start to relate to after a period of time, see that they're not brain dead idiots. Some of them have been spoon fed misinformation. And I do a lot of work trying to debunk some of that kind of stuff. Like I spend as much time debunking ridiculous COVID conspiracies, probably more time doing that than I do anything else. That said,
I just know based on what I saw. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I understand the skepticism. I understand people being hesitant to trust the government, and they should be. I understand that. I get flack from some people because, you know, like, for example, I was talking about Pfizer's, you know, Pfizer, I don't know if you know this, has the largest criminal fine ever imposed in history, right? And
dude, she does so many anti-vax talking points. Oh my God.
Kind of what I,
yeah.
This is kind of what but this is kind of what
I know,
mean, right?
but listen, okay, but hold on.
I'm super curious if that's even true. I tried to look up the thing that she brought up about the, I don't remember the thing, the pill that she brought up, Rasputin? It's not Rasputin. Oh God, what's it called? Somebody, does anybody know what I'm talking about? It was like some pill that you gave for like diabetes, and she was talking about how like this is like one of the worst things like ever, and it like I think, fuck, I don't want to misquote anything. I was like 60 people died I think taking this because of liver failure, resulin, but it's like 2 million people used this medication. The idea that it was some huge massive scandal, I don't know, man.
This is kind of what
I know,
right?
but listen, okay, but hold on, let me finish. I'm defending myself here, okay? There is no reason why I wouldn't bring these things up, okay? It's not fair to the general public to willfully ignore and lie and say, "Ooh, shh, don't talk about that. That'll change people's minds." Okay, I know. But you're saying like, you know, that I shouldn't be talking about that because it promotes vaccine hesitancy. But like, no, we should still be raising awareness of this stuff.
I didn't actually say that. Like, I agree that like we can talk about like past scandals that have happened with the FDA. We can talk about past scandals and reasons why there might be some hesitancy there. It's more that you're not just reaching out to people and then steering them in the right direction. Oftentimes it seems that you're empathizing with them, almost validating the bullshit that they believe.
Well, there are some things that I believe to be true, or maybe not necessarily
like, for example,
true,
in the Destiny
debate,
for example, in like the Destiny debate, you brought up the inflated death rates. Like that is like
and there is actually like, so I actually went back and did my research on that afterwards, because again, like I admitted, I was relying on, you know, what came out at the time. And I do actually have an article from the AAMC, the American Medical Association. Hold on, that's not American Medical.
Is this on them undercounting the COVID rates?
So that's when you really get into the nitty gritty, because like at the time when I was hearing about all of this, when we were all hearing about all of this, it was mainly talking about the, let me just see here. There was a particular statement, and I have it right here. It's from Deborah Birx, MD, coordinator of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, she said that when asked about people who have COVID-19 but die from pre-existing conditions, she said, if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that as a COVID death, which raised a bunch of questions about whether the death rate was with COVID or from.
Why not find an actual article that actually says, instead of this, like, well, she said that they do this and that and that and that, why not find something that says, like, the deaths are being overcounted or undercounted, right? If you have a pre-existing condition, you die from the coronavirus, yeah, of course it's counted as a coronavirus death. That's not...
From COVID. And that statement...
It's... Hold on. Fuck. Oh, it's actually been so long. I would have to even go back and... I actually need to go back and read more about this because there's something happened. I don't know if you can actually die. I think you can. I think the coronavirus can kill you directly. I think it can. But, like, super often, the things that will kill you is once you have the COVID-19 disease, things like pneumonia will kill you next. And it's not actually the coronavirus killing you. It's like your body's immune system has been compromised, and certain organs have been attacked, and then like a pneumonia infection will come in and kill you afterwards. And like, so for people that are like, well, that's not a coronavirus death. It's like,
it says combined with some...
Yeah, this applies to every disease, right? HIV has never killed a single person in the history of all of mankind. HIV can't kill you, right? It's just...
Health officials saying they follow the same policy sparked changes. And so the CDC like used that to be like, no, stop doing that. So the CDC acknowledged that that had happened and they took steps to mitigate it, but it was definitely happening. Now, to be fair,
are you sure that wasn't just like listing COVID on the, because the way that they make the death certificate, it could have just been that they were listing COVID on there as one of the causes of death, especially because COVID leads to a lot of other issues as well, right?
And you're right, but that was also being counted as a COVID death, which was the problem, and that changed the way that they were reporting things. So I
that's a far cry. That okay? So just to be clear,
I'm telling you that I
that's
fact checked myself.
Okay, so then you're walking back when you
I'm
said...
finishing. No, I'm not
you're
walking back.
I'm
saying...
Well, no, I'm not.
Hold on.
I'm asking if you're walking back this specific part of the quote where you said they were doing it because they wanted more federal aid. I don't believe that's true. That plays directly into the conspiracy theory.
So that's not a conspiracy theory. There were mayors and stuff of towns claiming it. It's all in this article. It talks about the entire thing that happened. And there were mayors that were claiming...
Wait, then why not quote it or say something about it? Like, read from the article then. Don't just say it's in this article, because we know that he's not going to read, he's not going to read the article on stream, right? No one's going to take like a minute to do that, right?
Claiming that, although it appears that those ended up after investigation being unsubstantiated. This also notes, the article also notes that,
why don't I hear that part ever? Why don't I hear like it eventually became unsubstantiated? It sounds that like a lot, like I guess
you're hearing it right now.
Well, based on what I'm hearing when you are talking on your channel generally, and when you were talking to Destiny, it was mainly just playing defense for the inflated death rates narrative, which I'm not saying that there haven't ever been, hold on, I'm not saying that there haven't ever been claims made that way. Okay, there have been. However, we do know for the most part, the deaths have been counted correctly. There may have been some...
And this is not a hill that I'm going to die on today.
There may have been there may have been some discrepancies here and there, absolutely. But the claim that they were conflating other deaths with COVID in order to get more federal aid, which was your initial claim. I have your direct quote here in my notes.
I'm not here. You're kind of beating at this point. I'm saying those things were said at the time. There were absolutely
but it was already known
claims
that they
of this
also were
happened.
not, but it was already known that they were also not substantiated when you made that claim initially, right?
When I made the claim initially, I said that there... No, stop. I didn't say this is for a fact absolutely happened. I said there were claims that, and there were,
no,
so that was not
that's
incorrect.
A lie. You said the death rate, you said quote.
Well, I'm not, I haven't memorized the debate with Destiny. I don't know why you have like
I didn't memorize it. I have one quote because I really am trying to get at here is that I don't think you're anti-vax. I don't. But I think that your rhetoric is effectively anti-vax. And what I'm trying to show that by the... Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So in addition to them acknowledging that there are problems with how, like even after the federal funding thing was found to be unsubstantiated, there were still claims, but the narrative is that it was unsubstantiated, okay? And there were also more people saying They did acknowledge that there are huge issues in how all data is reported, including the number of cases. And in some cases, they say that it may have been actually there's COVID deaths that are probably underreported,
Yeah.
which also makes sense to what Destiny is saying. And so kind of what I got from this is that the data, there's problems with data collection. I've talked about this a lot on my stream. I don't know how often you're actually in my stream, but I talk about problems with data collection a lot. Regardless, the reason it's not a hill that I want to die on is because it really doesn't make that big of a difference. So I mean, you know, if it's between a 1 and a 2% death rate, it's not like a big enough. I'm not saying that there's actually been 0 deaths from COVID. It's all a lie. It's all like, if you were going to say, hold on,
I don't think that's what you're saying.
No, okay, I know. But if you were to kind of claim that I was pandering to conspiracies, the conspiracy theory would actually be there's actually no such thing as COVID. All of that was the flu, which, believe it or not, I've heard many, many times. Okay, that's the conspiracy.
But what you do is you shit all over the like absolutely crazy conspiracies, but then you play defense for the more moderate conspiracy theories. So let me read you. Let me read you your direct quote here, and you can tell me what you think this sounds.
And then after that, I'd like to move on from like the Destiny thing because I'm debating you, not Destiny.
It's not about.
And I'd really like to have a separate dialogue.
I'm not trying to debate you on Destiny. I'm trying to debate you on the effects of your rhetoric specifically. Mm-hmm. Because what I said in my video originally was that I think that sometimes you're effectively anti-vax. So your quote at 1518 was, quote, the death rates, for example, we know they were conflating other causes of death with COVID deaths. Like that's been confirmed. I live in Texas and they admitted it. They said they said they were doing it because they wanted more federal aid.
That did get said. Where's the lie?
That was said. Somebody did say that. Somebody said that.
Or explained that wasn't true. This has already been debunked.
Okay, listen, Hunter.
Right?
So you're being bad faith because at the beginning. Listen, let me explain. Here's why. Because as soon as you brought this up, I said I already read an article and I fact checked myself. And it seems like although the federal funding thing was unsubstantiated, there is widespread acknowledgement of deficiencies in COVID reporting. So I already fact checked myself, but you're trying to get me on a gotcha that I told you this isn't a hill I'm going to die on.
All right, we can move on then. I'm not trying to get you on any kind of a gotcha. I'm trying to explain from my perspective why I think that your rhetoric plays defense for anti-vax stuff. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
but I went into your actual streams if you want to talk a little bit about that too. Like,
yeah.
Because I took a really big issue with something you said on one of your streams the other day when you were talking about the past FDA scandals, which, like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging that those institutions have had scandals. But at the 2 hour, 18-minute mark, you said they do have. You said so. So the fact that they're really. Wait, hold on. You're talking about vaccine mandates here. You said they do absolutely have medical and religious and even sometimes philosophical exemptions for other vaccines. So the fact they're really not doing that, they're going to say, oh, of course we're going to provide exemptions. They won't. Look at what they're doing in New York. They're going to make it so you have to get it to... Sorry, I misspelled this. So you have to get it in order to live your normal life. And the government has been transparent about this. They haven't tried to hide it. They told us they intended to take away all our liberties and give them back once we were vaccinated.
Not all. Well, okay, yeah.
Do you think that sounds like a little bit of like... first of all, there are processes for exemptions in virtually every place.
This isn't anything anti-vax. This is absolutely anti-mandate, and that is where I stand. That is the hill I die on.
Okay, and that's fine. That's why I'm hoping we can get into the vaccine mandate from here, kind of. But this isn't just, hey, I'm not against vaccine. I'm against vaccine mandates. This is the government has been transparent. They've told us they're going to take away our liberties and only give them back
they have.
once we're vaccinated.
Well, there have been a lot of pundits who are saying stuff like, we need to make it hard. We need to make it hard. We need to take things away from them and make it basically impossible not to get the vaccine.
That's a huge stretch from the government.
Okay, that plus the people who are White House correspondents, people in the Biden administration. Biden himself has said that. What are you even talking about?
See, this is what I mean also is the whole thing with the exemption process. Do you realize that as COVID vaccine mandates have risen, I'm showing this up on my screen, as COVID vaccine mandates have risen, religious exemptions have grown as well. There are processes in place for people to request exemptions. Now, whether or not they actually are
Right.
granted those
Okay.
exemptions is a different.
And they're actually making it harder. They're taking steps to make it harder for you to even claim religious exemptions now, because what
Well,
they're
it's
doing
'cause
is I don't know if you've heard about this, but they've started to give people a questionnaire that asks them all kinds of questions to try to weed out whether or not they're lying. So they actually have a question that says, in what way do you religiously object? And it's forcing them to fill it out and say, for example, I object to fetal cell lines being used in the products. And if that's the case, it forces them to sign a waiver, or what's the word? Like, on good faith, that it's asking them to sign that they're not using any kind of medications that's ever been used in a fetal line, and it lists like examples of them. Because
Yo, I'm sorry if this sounds like shitty, but if you want to apply for an exemption to something, then of course you need to prove that you need to be like exempted from it. And like an exemption can't just be filling out like one piece of paper. Like you're trying to say that like there's a rule that applies to everybody but me. That rule shouldn't apply to me. Okay, well you probably need to prove why that's the case. It's not enough to just fill out one piece of paper. It's like, oh, well, it shouldn't apply to me because LOLOL, right? No, of course you should prove that.
because there's a lot of them. So it's like makes them attest to the fact that they've never done that. So they're
So
not
it
just
asks
saying,
if
oh,
it's
okay, you have a religious exemption. They're making it very difficult. For medical
not making it-
exemptions,
hold on,
there are almost none.
Can I respond to that? Because I understand totally like what you mean. I haven't heard of that completely. I would have to look that up myself. But that sounds like a completely normal process. If you're already taking other medication that are using fetal cells, clearly the excuse that you don't want to take the vaccine would actually be a dumb reason not to get the vaccine on religious grounds. That wouldn't actually
I mean,
suffice.
I
think
would
that's
just, I
completely
would
fair.
mainly object to the state trying to force a religious survey on people.
Is
as
that
kind
the,
of,
I mean, but if you're going to claim your religion as an exemption for something that is otherwise mandated from everyone else, like, yeah, of course.
was the state doing that, or was it a
it was a
company?
private company in this case, but
Good question, Hunter.
Okay, so it wasn't the state. Let's make sure we keep that
scope of the
separate, though,
discussion,
'cause that's
in the
really big
because
difference.
it was a state and it was a company in New York City, and the scope of the discussion was included like, will this become a statewide thing for New York? And the other problem, and of course, like once these things become like public, that's when states start saying, that might be a good idea, and begin adopting them. It's dangerous, but at the same time, like, okay, so. I'm kind of confused about where we're headed here. So
We're headed here because
just-
I kind of am wanting to substantiate a little bit more what I said in my video. And I said,
Oh, you
when I
called
was
me
going really-
stupid, like in every way except stupid. But but go ahead.
when I was going off
Kind of like how she's an anti-vaxxer in every way except actually being anti-vax.
on anti-vaxxers and saying that's brain dead, and there's no, because I still believe that other than having a medical reason or like your doctor specifically telling you you shouldn't get the vaccine, I think you heard me say this on Hippy Dippy, I don't think there's any substantial reason to get the vaccine at all. Zero. I think all of them are actually brain dead reasons, and I would that's a hill I'm willing to die on. So when I see that you're like kind of coming on, the problem is that you're more effective in a way than like anti-vaxxers, because anti-vaxxers are kind of nutty, but you're not nutty. You're reasonable, and you come across reasonable, but then you start to dispel.
Thank you for acknowledging the reason that people hate me is because it's really hard to counter my arguments because they're good.
I feel as if I'm countering your arguments just fine because I'm criticizing
No,
your overall...
you're trying to like tack me to the wall and break down every single word I've said
not.
without
I'm
actually getting into the arguments themselves.
No, I'm showing
because you know that
I'm
they're hard to
pulling
counter.
That's not true. We can talk about the arguments that are super hard to counter next, but I'm showing you two now direct quotes that prove my argument, which is your rhetoric plays into anti-vaccine narratives, and what you're doing is you're validating anti-vaccine narratives there too. So you kind of you're kind of playing the like Tim Pool centrist card, where you're like, I'm just
I am
asking
a centrist.
questions.
I know that
I'm
you
just
hate that, but
no, I'm a
I am
centrist
just
too.
asking questions, and I'm encouraging other people to also ask questions
you're
and make
not.
decisions
You're not
for
just
themselves
answering
rather than blindly trusting the government.
That's
because
fine,
we should
but
not
you
be
don't
doing that.
just do- it
So many
seems that
people these
usually
days just go along and just would rather be spoon-fed because they're lazy. They'd rather not worry about it. They'd rather let the government tell them what to do, take liberties away, and then offer a little bit of those liberties.
To reiterate something I've said a million times before, now, not to jerk myself off, okay? But like when I do my own research, okay, I do a lot of reading on stuff. Believe it or not, I do. I'll Google around, I'll wiki around, I'll watch fucking videos. I do like a decent amount of like to get ready for like some topic, right? Hopefully I showed a little bit of this on my stream the other day. But I feel like most of the time when people are like, I do my own research, and then I ask them, oh, okay, well, like what kind of research have you done? It's like, okay, well, what about this headline? What about this tweet? What about this Instagram post? What about like, wait, what the fuck? You haven't actually done any research at all. You just don't like the establishment view. That's it. But you haven't done any reading. You haven't done any research. You just disapprove of what the establishment is, but you don't know why, right? Like you're just repeating to me talking points you've heard from like other influencers online. I don't know. That bothers the fuck out of me.
Take liberties away and then offer a little bit of those liberties back if they do what they say. And I don't like that.
Okay, so you're standing by this quote, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
So then that's fine. It just, to me, this sounds like conspiracy bait. The idea that the government's trying to
There's
take
no
all of our...
conspiracy here.
The government's trying to take away all our liberties and only going to give them back once they're vaccinated.
No,
the
they
government's
already
not really
did
even
a
doing
lot of
that
that.
much, other
No.
than Biden's vaccine mandate. Usually these are private
let's
companies
talk about the
enacting
vaccine
this.
mandate. Can I tell you how I feel about the specific mandate that Biden put out?
Sure.
Okay, so I think hopefully it's accepted by pretty much everyone that this is potentially unconstitutional to order the private companies to enforce a vaccine or be fined. He's already...
I think that it might have been like 100 years old, so I don't know if it applies anymore, but I'm pretty sure there's legal precedent for, I think the Supreme Court made a ruling on whether or not a private company could mandate its people get a vaccine, or it might have even been a state. I don't remember, because I think the federal government ruled that like as like a ward of like protecting your citizens, like you have the right to mandate this. Is my understanding.
Being sued. I mean, we already know that this is a very problematic
It's a legal
overreach.
gray area,
Okay,
yeah.
hold on. Yes, okay. So in the past, Psaki and Biden both said that they have no power to do this and that they wouldn't. They postured there wouldn't be any mandates, and they completely 180'd on it. All of this just kind of makes me suspicious that these mandates are more like rhetorical, I guess, and that they know it will spur...
It looks dumb as fuck when you call people who are vaccinated and encourage people to get an anti-vax just because they aren't okay with mandates. Yeah, sure. You probably shouldn't say anti-vax. That's why I try not to call her anti-vax. I don't think I do. But like the problem is that, and Hunter has actually correctly identified it, the problem is that makes her seem even more credible because she constantly says she's not anti-vax, but she will rattle off every single anti-vax talking point under the guise of just asking questions, right? So it's like, oh, well, like, it's not like she's anti-vax. She's not crazy. She's even vaccinated, right? Like, that's like, she's credible. But it's like, well, but then she like repeats every single bad anti-vax talking point over and over and over and over again. And it's like, okay, like.
Businesses to move forward with enacting mandates of their own rather than the White House having to follow through with the mandates, which they already admitted are not in their authority to impose. I don't like this strategy. It seems cowardly. It seems deceitful. It seems like another attempt to divide the country and make us fight and take our attention.
Yeah, like initially, I'm going to sound like a huge dick here. Well, I don't know if I want to say that because it's always a losing position to take. But like, she was also another one of those people who's like, I can't get it because of medical reasons for like months and months. And then now she did. Maybe she did. Like, you can never call someone out on that, obviously. But like, I don't know. It seems like if I were to look at her and an anti-vaxxer and I didn't know that she was vaccinated now, or she says she is, I don't know if she is or not. It feels like every single talking point would be literally the exact same. Like every single talking point would be the exact same.
Attention away from the current administration's shortcomings, of which there are many. I feel like it's possible that there's just no real substance behind the mandate because it's becoming clear that it's going to be an uphill legal challenge and it's probably not going to pan out. And if it does pan out, and I'd hate to see that, I am floored by how many people like you think that this is going to be good for the country.
Well, I
because
would
right
be
now,
curious to know two things is since with my understanding with this is because I think I talked about this on a Hippie Dippy. I don't remember if that was the one you were on or not, but yeah, I recognize right away that the mandates in and of itself is a legal gray area.
But then what is she supposed to say? Is she not allowed to speak? What is a reasonable argument you can make without looking like an anti-vax? Just stop repeating anti-vax talking. What do you mean? There are reasonable arguments about like your obligations to society and that you shouldn't have any, I guess. You could do that. But don't say shit like, oh, well, like it was confirmed that the cases were overcounted. Or like, oh, well, it was confirmed that like the state is forced to do this. Okay, well, it was a private company. Oh, like just don't repeat misinformation. That plays into anti-vax talking points. What do you mean? It's that easy. Just don't lie. Don't say shit that's not true. What do you mean?
the way that Biden's using OSHA, it does appear that there is some precedent there because OSHA has enacted other protections before also. And just for the audience, OSHA is a federal entity that regulates workplace safety and health. And it's argued by a lot of like legal professionals that they will have grounds to enact authority with the vaccination stuff there also, but I'm not denying the fact that this is absolutely a legal gray area and it's going to have to play out differently there. So my question to you would be, if this was found to be justified, let's say the court ruled in favor, all right, hypothetically, they said, yeah, OSHA can do this, that's fine. Would you be okay with it then?
No, I was never.
Then this is another thing too. Don't use an argument and pretend like it is a necessary part of your argument if once it's rolled back, you don't care. So when you're repeating over, and I knew she was going to say this too. When you're repeating over and again, like, oh, well, they don't have legal authority. Oh, they don't have legal authority. Okay, well, let's say that they had the legal authority. Would it be okay then? Well, no, it still wouldn't be okay. Like, wait, well, then why the fuck are we even, why are you even talking about the legal authority? Why, you clearly don't give a fuck about it, right?
It was never a matter of how can they weasel around and get it passed regardless of whether or not they already acknowledged it was an overreach. The issue is, how can you honestly think that all these people who have actually taken a stand, they've dug their heels into the sand and they've said, hell no, I'm not going to comply with this. How can you actually believe that Biden can just wave his ultimatum wand and tell them do it or else? And they're just going to say, okay, well, sure. Well, all right then.
So do you have a problem
that's
with
not gonna
Biden
happen.
doing stuff?
They're
So do you
going
have
to
a problem
strike. They're going to protest. Police forces are resigning. Authoritarian show of force has never been the right approach.
Oh my God. Authoritarian show of force. Fuck. I wonder how, I'm so curious how critical she was of the Trump administration doing things unilaterally, like the travel ban that they did without Congress, like the sending the National Guard or whatever the fuck down to start building the wall, or like doing tariffs via like national security and stuff instead of passing any of that. I wonder if she was as critical of Trump doing that.
It wasn't the right approach when Biden was waving his finger and saying, get the vaccine or stay masked forever. The choice is yours. It wasn't the right approach when
I mean, that is
public
a fair
health
choice.
officials, like we talked about before, were advocating for making things difficult and withholding liberties until.
I would need a source on that too, because
Okay,
you
well, I
originally
can
said
send
it
it
was
to
you originally said it was the government, and then you eventually said it was actually just public.
Yes, they have
pundits,
been
which are
talking
way
about
less
making it. Okay,
substantial.
Oh, they've been talking about making it versus they made it, right? Like,
Hunter, listen,
But-
are they or are they not making things difficult?
I don't know.
On
Are
the
they or are
unvaccinated?
anti-vaxxers making it more difficult for themselves for
Okay,
for
all right,
being
let me put it
brainless
this
and
way.
refusing
No,
to take the
okay, let me-
vaccine? Like,
First of
here's the
all,
thing.
like I'm
can I
gonna
just
get,
cut in really
I'm
quickly
gonna
here?
start taking a fucking shot every time you say brain dead, because I'm
I
pretty
didn't
sure
say
it's your
brain dead there. I
favorite
said
word.
brainless. It is my favorite word with
Okay.
talking about anti-vaxxers because
Okay.
they are brain
No,
dead. But
because
well, but that shouldn't bother her because she's not an anti-vaxxer, right? So he's not talking about her, right?
because you're saying the same thing. It doesn't matter who said it before. Right now, the administration is making it very difficult, if not impossible, to remain unvaccinated and remain in
wasn't
the
even-
workforce.
okay, that wasn't even what I was talking about. With the people that you asked, do you really think these people are going to dig their heels in or whatever? I think the people who have already dug their heels in and are refusing to get the vaccine, I think that me and you can probably both agree that some of those people are actually insane. Like some of them who think it's like destroying the world or whatever. Like, unfortunately, those
I
people
would call
might.
them insane. but, I
Unfortunately,
mean,
those people might lose their jobs. I mean, they do have a choice here, and they
okay,
can.
what about people who aren't like that? Because there's plenty of people who don't think
It
that
would
this
have
is
to
a
be-
mass murder conspiracy.
So
that
there are plenty of
legitimately are
people that
afraid
don't-
and don't want to get it.
I know, and but just if they're afraid and don't want to get it, to me, that's a very dumb reason not to get the vaccine.
It doesn't matter. The
It
fact of
does
the matter
matter.
is, hold on. The fact of the matter is, this decision, if it's upheld in court, sets a dangerous precedent because it's a huge expansion of presidential and executive branch authority. And so people who love Biden are quick to be like, great, yeah, woo, let's do that. Yeah, expand the executive branch's power. But Biden's not going to be
Is this really a massive expansion of the presidential branch? Is it really for like vaccine related stuff? Like, I don't know, maybe.
president forever. And
I can't like when I think of expansion of executive branch, I thought again, I hate to bring up the Trump stuff over and over again, but like I thought that like the travel ban, the tariffs, doing like economic policy unilaterally from the executive, and then like the border wall stuff. I don't know. I thought that was kind of a weird like overstep of executive power, but who knows?
And once you give them that more authority, they hold that new power indefinitely. That's what we don't want. We
just not
don't
sure
want the
what
federal
authority
government
exactly.
to expand and have this kind of control
So
over
OSHA, like, what is
private
their
companies.
OSHA wants to like hold control over like making sure they all get
OSHA
vaccinated?
is
I don't understand
why
what's
does
like
it,
the where's the
OSHA
control reach here?
OSHA is just the Biden administration's workaround so that they can get away with doing something that they know is illegal and not in their power to do.
Well,
If
no,
they had
it's
the
not a
power to do it,
workaround.
they
It's the
wouldn't be
actual
using
potential.
it. He literally
It's the-
admitted, Biden admitted
I know,
it was a workaround.
but that's why they're
Okay.
So even if they're using OSHA, that's potentially taking a legal avenue there, right? So with the
It's a
mandates thing,
workaround.
it kind of comes down to one, yeah, it's a legal gray area. I think we can both find common ground there 100%. But as far as like vaccine mandates generally, I know we talked about this on Hippy Dippy. There is precedent for the state to mandate
I was hoping you would
vaccines.
say that.
Oh,
Right.
so do you disagree
Yeah.
with me on this?
I agree that there is a precedent, but can we talk about that precedent?
Sure.
So Jacobson versus Massachusetts, which is what you're talking about right now, happened
one of
long
them.
enough ago to be written by a Civil War veteran. Okay. In this case, so this was smallpox, by the way. Smallpox has a 30% death rate on its normal form and a 100% death rate on some other forms. Smallpox is a plague, right?
There
So
were way
Jacobson
more recently, too,
Jacobson argued that that ruling was an infringement on the rights of the individual to care for their bodies in a way that seemed reasonable to them, right? So in this time, the Supreme Court doesn't have a great track record. All right, they just passed the Dred Scott decision where they decided that Black people didn't have human rights. And Jacobson was quoted in a 1920 something year 1920 something case that permitted the state to sterilize the feeble-minded, right? So this was a decision where they leaned heavily on Jacobson versus Mass to sterilize mentally handicapped people.
This
And actually,
isn't
I have a
the
quote. Hold
only-
on. I have a quote that I want to find because it's
This isn't
important.
the
Hold on.
only ruling, though. There have been multiple others. I believe
I'm
there was
not
one
done.
in the 80s also, right?
Okay, I'm not done. Okay, so here it is. It says, the principle that is
I just imagine you're like, well, there's legal precedents here, but that legal precedents came from a time when there was also another ruling that was bad, so that precedent's actually throw. Oh god, dude, she's like the ultimate like steamroller machine of just like a bunch of like garbage arguments. Holy shit.
sustains compulsory vaccination is broad enough to cover cutting the fallopian tubes. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. So yeah, this is Jacobson versus Mass. The progressive precedent upon which all the
didn't say
other
it was
ones that you're
progressive.
okay, no, okay. Well, I shouldn't have assumed that. But all the other legal cases that you're referring to base themselves on Jacobson versus Match, which is pretty much an awful ruling that needs.
But even if that was an awful ruling, I think on further cases, like you can expand on it a little bit, but it still reinforces the original if you have that much precedence behind it, right? Like I don't think you can just say like, well, the original was bad, so all of this legal precedence is thrown away, and that like I don't know. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it works that way. Unless you get like a big Supreme Court decision that overturns like some prior shit, like.
To be revisited at this time and under a new set of circumstances. This
So
is
what
not
about
smallpox.
just this month? What about just recently, this year, when the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Indiana University with vaccine mandates?
Well, I'm not familiar with that. Can you?
Yeah, but in fairness, I
Expand?
guess that is a university, so that might not be a complete
Yeah.
one-to-one comparison.
So,
But I
this
consider
is-
that's university, so that might not be a complete
Yeah.
one-to-one comparison.
So,
But I can
this
send that to you
it,
also.
it does matter, right? That it does matter that we treat this differently, okay? Because this isn't a plague that has a 30 to 100% mortality rate, right? This
Also,
isn't
it's not-
responsible for decimating entire populations of people.
Right, so again, we're back into the anti-vax talking points, right? It's not really that big of a disease. It's not really that big a deal. Like, do we really care that much? It's not a huge deal, right? So, like, she admits that there does, like, you can justify mandates at some point. Not for the coronavirus. It's not a big deal, right? Like, it's like...
People like smallpox is.
So, okay, I'm not really sure how much relevance that has on whether or not the precedent is there. So it's not just to be clear, the only precedent is not the 1905 case. There was also one in 1922. There was also one just this year with the Supreme Court in Indiana University. So this has
all
been
based
ruled
off
over.
Jacobson versus Mass.
Even so,
which needs
this
to be
has been-
revisited.
Why? This is such a bizarre fucking statement. Like, all the legal precedent is bad because the very original ruling, I disagree with parts of it because it happened at the same time as other court cases that parts of them got overturned. This is such a fucking bizarre argument. Holy shit.
Because it's a giant fucking human rights violation.
Okay, this has the precedent there, but it's not just the precedent. It's also the fact that the states have the right, by using their police powers, to protect public safety. I believe they're able to use the 10th Amendment, and it might be the 14th Amendment also. I'd have to double check that.
So the 14th Amendment has actually been one of the things that people leaned on after the Jacobson versus Mash. So since all of those awful rulings,
Oh yeah, no.
Supreme
This
Court
wasn't the
has
right amendment.
repeatedly made decisions that limited the power of the government to touch somebody's body under the 14th Amendment. So the 14th Amendment is the deprivation of, property. Also, it expands to mean like your person, like, the government cannot come and take something from your body. They can't cut your fallopian tube so that you can't have dumb children. All right.
I
All of
agree
this
with
was
that,
an output
yes.
of the civil rights movement. Okay. And I think that this needs to be revisited. I have
So can I
always
explain the
said
problem
that a
with what you're saying
precedent
here?
doesn't mean, just because there's a precedent doesn't mean that it's right. And that doesn't mean that people can't object to it. You can't just say there's a precedent and expect everyone to go, okay, well then, right?
Well, no. I mean, like, that's exactly how precedents work, right? Like, if there is a bunch of precedents behind a certain law, and then you are, like, doing something, and it goes against all that precedence, unless you get, like, a novel fucking decision from the Supreme Court or something gets overturned, then you do kind of say, like, oh, yeah, that's, like, how it's gone, so that's how it's going to continue to go, right? Like, that's exactly how it works, no?
Do you agree with that?
No, it's not just that though. It's also that there's, I believe in the Constitution, the state literally has the right to do it by using their police powers. I believe that's what the 10th Amendment actually. Yeah. Second of all, what you're doing right now, the big problem is that this is called a fallacy of origin, and you're basically saying because the first.
Oh no! Don't ever use the name of the thing, guys. Don't do that. Those are debate bro tactics.
First court case was this way or that way, or had this bad thing done, or this guy was really bad. You're basically trying to argue that the whole thing is tainted.
No,
And that's not really a very fair argument.
I'm not
because
doing that.
Because
I'm
you
saying
are
that I
doing
didn't
that,
agree
and
with
the
it. No,
precedent.
I'm saying I didn't agree with the precedent then, and I don't agree with it now.
But you were.
But who cares? Who cares what you agree with, right? That doesn't make it legal or illegal. It just means that you do or don't like something. It doesn't matter what you agree with or don't agree with. That's different than like, oh, this shouldn't be legal. Why? Well, because I don't agree with how it's been ruled. Like, okay, but who are you? You're not a Supreme Court judge. No one cares how you.
Bringing up the fact that he was out of the civil rights, and you read the quote about the stuff
You
that he
can't
said.
use fallacy of origin when you're talking about a Supreme Court decision, because that's absolutely very, very important to actually get to the root of where all of these laws and authorities came from.
I agree, but the way that you're bringing up like
Okay.
specific quotes from one of the judges is kind of.
I mean,
coming off as
to me,
pretty
that stands. I mean, no, it's because here's why. It says the principle that sustains compulsory vaccination is
This is the principle. Does she think the Supreme Court is a school? They don't even have principles. I'm sorry. That's my one dad joke of the year.
broad enough to cover cutting the fallopian tubes. That was a Supreme Court decision.
Okay, there were other Supreme Court decisions that didn't say that, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure, later on, when
in
things
1922,
became more progressive,
in
as we started to
1922,
realize
things
that
didn't become that
as we
much more
started to
progressive
realize
in like 15 years.
what happened in 1922, I didn't catch
There was
that.
another, and by 1922, in another case, Justice Brandeis, writing for a unanimous court, upheld childhood school mandates, calling it settled law.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was another one too. So it wasn't just the one with the guy that said the fallopian tube thing.
Okay. Well, what I'm saying here is that, these arguments about the vaccine and the mandates, it's not like, is the vaccine safe, but about the actual mandates, the federal and it is important to note that Jacobson versus Mass is a state ruling, not a federal one, right? The federal government does not have the authority to do this. That's why they're reaching
they
around
might.
through OSHA.
The OSHA
Okay.
thing might have the.
The federal government doesn't have the authority to do this, so they're reaching around through OSHA. Hold on. Let me check. Let me just make sure I can understand this. She's saying the president regarded actions as state, not federal. Wait, hold on. I don't understand this. 1 second.
Versus mass is a state ruling, not a federal one, right? The federal government does not have the authority to do this. That's why they're reaching around through OSHA.
The OSHA.
I don't understand what it means to reach around through OSHA when OSHA exists under the Department of Labor, which is part of the federal government. Can somebody explain what she means by that? Or does she mean anything by that? Or does OSHA exist at like a state level? Or is it something different? Because OSHA is part of the federal government. Basically, the Jacobson case deals principally with state authority and individual rights. She says unsettled whether federal authority grants government rights to have vaccine mandates, which is untested. That might be the case, sure. Okay.
OSHA thing might have the ability to.
This doesn't necessarily have to do with safety of vaccines. All of the entire anti-vax movement, it doesn't just have to do with safety of vaccines, although some people do lean on that, and that's their decision. Really, fundamentally, it has to do with the right of a person to make a decision about their own bodies. Okay, so I have my child is completely vaccinated for everything. Okay, I don't know if you know this, but I have my COVID vaccine. So I'm not anti-vax at all.
Such a weird way to say that. But okay. I'm probably like reading way too far into things. That just seems so weird. But okay, the way that she said it was so weird.
Right? But I understand the danger of allowing the government to pressure and coerce people into injecting something into their body is completely different than, say, like the seatbelt. You know, people always want to bring it back to seatbelts. Like, this is not even similar at all.
Oh, wait. How old is her child? That's kind of a creepy question. Has she said that publicly? I'm not trying to, like, dox her. Because I don't think Nathan is vaccinated. Okay, I think I read way too far into what she was saying there. Everything she's saying makes sense. Never mind. Forget everything I just said. She's saying, like, my kid has their vaccines, and I have my COVID vaccine. Instead of saying he has his vaccines and I'm vaccinated, because she's specifying the COVID vaccine. That's, never mind. Yeah, okay.
Like the seatbelt. You know, people always want to bring it back to seatbelts. Like, this is not even similar at all.
Absolutely.
You've also got...
They're both preventative measures.
You don't have giant fucking multi-trillion-dollar companies making seatbelts and, like...
Wait, okay, hold on. Firstly, okay, the market cap of Pfizer is $246 billion. Is there any pharmaceutical company worth over $1 trillion? I'm curious. Is that true? Moderna is $173 billion. What is the largest? What about Johnson & Johnson? Is that just pharmaceuticals? Don't they do like other shit too? They're $433 billion. There are no multi-trillion-dollar pharmaceutical, I don't think. However, car manufacturers make seatbelts. I don't know if any of car manufacturers are multi-trillion. What about Ford? Nope, they're not either. But I mean, like, these companies are worth tens or hundreds of billions, but
like, you know, making a ton of money off of their laws.
You have a bunch of companies that make cars and put seatbelts
but
in.
they're not. You know what I'm starting to say is that we don't have a
seatbelts are preventative measures, right?
We don't have big.
Oh, you want to? I'm gonna be really mean here, okay? I'm sorry, but I've been holding back being really mean, okay? This is, if you want to know really quickly, I'm gonna do a big blanket statement here. I hope somebody, I know you guys are ready to be Reddit warriors and make posts on my server about how mad you are. This is like one of my huge red flags. Oh, maybe I've done this in a video and you can throw it back at me, okay? And if I've done it, I'm dumb to do it. You should never do this, okay? Anytime anybody ever puts big before something, you can almost for sure write off every single thing they have to say about anything. Anytime somebody talks about like big tech, big pharma, big finance, banks, anytime somebody says big and something, unless you're talking about my big dick, you almost can completely write off anything they have to say because it's all gonna be some crazy dumb shit, right? I don't know what it is. It's like if you take any normal thing and then you put big right before it, you know that they're always going to be on some crazy shit. Every single time, without failure. Every time.
A big seatbelt, lobbying to fucking Congress and paying kickbacks to doctors and, you know, paying...
What is that supposed to imply?
It implies that pharmaceutical companies are, like, legitimately fucking evil. And they don't...
Oh my god, dude! Now I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that like pharmaceutical companies are like you jerk them off and everything. They're like these holier than thou entities. But like, imagine you like work for fucking Pfizer or Moderna, and you've like almost pioneered some of the first of like a revolutionary new type of vaccination that has been distributed at an unprecedented rate with technologies that have allowed for transportation, for storage, for the actual like process by which you're even injected with this, by the engineers that have all the like. Imagine you do this, and it's like revolutionary. Everything related to these vaccines has been absolutely revolutionary. Hopefully, history smiles favorably upon it, and there's not some lurking side effect that kills us. But like looking back, like oh my god, everything is like revolutionary about these vaccines. And then you've got like people like this that are like, these companies are fucking evil. They're fucking evil companies. They're fucking horrible. Fucking evil. Like, can you imagine if it took like 2 or 3 or 4 years to get these vaccines rolling, where we would be at right now? Look at the infection rates right now, even with countries hitting 50, 60, 70, 80% vaccines. Imagine if we didn't have any vaccines right now. What would the infection rates look like? Would we still be in total fucking lockdown? Would we have like 2x or 3x the cases or deaths? Like, oh my God, what a horrendously shitty fucking thing to say. These companies are fucking evil, right? Like, especially after saying how much you love freedom and freedom and freedom and freedom and the freedom to do what you want and the freedom to have your freedoms so you can take your freedoms and put them in your freedoms. Right? It's like, oh, but also big businesses are evil. Like, what the fuck? What is even your ideology? I'm like so lost.
And
Okay,
they
so
don't
what's the
care
point
about
of you
you, and they
bringing
don't
that
care
up?
about people who die. They care about making money. Let's talk about what happened today. Are you familiar with what happened today? It was a huge deal, the booster shots getting shot down.
I haven't been following the booster
What is the huge deal? How is it a huge deal? What does it even mean?
shot thing too much.
Okay,
I know
so
that the
you should
booster
be.
shot. I know that the booster
okay.
shot plan was shot down, but I
Okay.
would really like to stick more on the topics that we kind of came here to talk about, both the mandates.
Well, this is no.
this
I
isn't
promise
about
you
the
that this
mandate
is
or
very,
even vaccine
very,
hesitancy.
It is
Here,
absolutely.
now, if Hunter is smart, he won't let her go on this. But I mean, I want to hear what she's saying. Is she talking about the fact that like they're saying like we probably don't need booster shots right now? Like, and she's saying that's like a huge deal? Like.
Absolutely. This has to do with why we don't want to give the federal government that power. And you specifically asked me, I know you don't want to go down this path, because I heard you talking to like a really nice viewer on your channel, right? Who was extremely hesitant about the vaccines. And he brought up the FDA members resigning, and you kind of dismissed it. And we're like, that's a conspiracy. But it's not a conspiracy.
No. I don't know how much of that you saw, but I actually originally I'd pulled up the wrong article, and then in that conversation I actually had to I corrected myself.
Okay, so let's talk about it, because this is very, very important. I promise you it's important, right? So the reason it's important is because back in like I think August or July, I think August, Biden announced prematurely that the boosters would roll out starting like last week of September, like next week. And this was before the FDA had approved any booster plan. So in case you don't know or people don't know, the vaccines, you can't just give as many as you want. The FDA approves the drug and the timing. So when a booster is considered, the drug companies have to like resubmit all the data to the FDA to review it and approve it again, and like the timing and all of that. So when Biden announced that, it made a few people in the FDA really angry, because they're the doctors and scientists on the advisory panels in the process of reviewing the data. And the reason that they...
Oh, this is interesting. Oh, maybe we dig into this later, but probably not because I'm too lazy. So apparently so this headline title for CNBC is third member of prestigious FDA panel resigns over approval of Biogen's Alzheimer's drug. So some conflict that I've heard within the FDA, people that do research or whatever can probably do this better. So something controversial I think that the FDA is being a little bit more accepting of is... oh fuck, I don't want to fuck this up. I almost don't want to talk about this. Take everything I say here with a grain of salt. Is usually when the FDA approves a drug, they want to see like a direct alleviation of symptoms, or they want to see like a treatment for like symptoms that somebody's has of like a given disease or whatever, right? But I think now for a couple drugs, they've approved things that are tied to symptoms but might not necessarily alleviate symptoms, which I think is, some people are saying, hold on, this is kind of problematic. I might have even read about this in relation to, it might have been for these Alzheimer's drugs maybe, I don't remember, it was a while ago. But so for instance, for Alzheimer's, there's an accumulation of these things called amyloid plaques, I think, in the brain. They start to accumulate. And it's theorized that these things, the buildup of this plaque might be what causes these different neural pathways to die and get fucked. and cause Alzheimer's, essentially. However, we don't know that. We don't know that 100%. But there's a drug, I think the drug that got approved, I don't know if it's this drug or another one, but I think there's a drug that supposedly gets rid of some of these beta amyloids. However, that's all the drug was proven to do. I don't think it was proven that it can slow down progression in Alzheimer's disease or help people with Alzheimer's disease, just that it gets rid of these plaques. But it might not be the case that getting rid of these plaques actually helps somebody with a progression in Alzheimer's disease. And that's like so people are like, well, should we approve a drug if we don't know it treats the disease and it just treats, there's a name for this, like treats like a symptom, treats something else that's not necessarily the disease. I don't remember the scientific name for that, but like, yeah. Yeah, I'm not, I don't, that's a hard one. I don't know enough about the medical arguments to have like a super informed, like, oh, they should do that or shouldn't do that. But yeah. People that don't re-rack stuff at the gym should get warnings and are kicked out of the gym. Fucking true. Fucking true.
They left was to make a statement that the White House was playing political optics role that they should not have been playing. They were trying to pressure and coerce the FDA to release a drug that they had not deemed safe yet, and they were mad enough to actually resign over it. So, it does make a big statement about the political pressure on the FDA to approve drugs. And, the Biden administration basically coming out and giving them an overly restrictive timeline to do so. So if they had not shot it down, which thank God they did, they may have been rushed to approve a booster plan due to political pressure. And this is the kind of thing I was alluding to with Destiny, when pressure from the drug companies, and in this case, the actual executive branch, interfere with scientists at the FDA who are trying to do their jobs to protect public safety.
Okay, I understand all that, and that's bad. But that's talking about the booster plan. Even the thing you read said they announced the booster plan. That's probably
Do you not think that there was political pressure to
hold on.
approve the vaccine?
I just let you. No. I just let you talk for like 20 minutes.
Okay,
so,
but it's relevant.
Well, it's not. It's really not, because this is about the boosters right now. We can worry about the boosters a little bit later. They were announcing the plan too early, and that's what caused the FDA people to be upset.
How are
and
you
also
this
I don't
dense
well
to
hold
not
on wait. I do understand
the relevance.
I do understand, but I also recognize that this has happened with other administrations too. For example, with the Trump administration, Trump constantly not getting along with Dr. Fauci and not taking his advice. And also, just when I was trying to fact check you, I actually found something from when Trump was still president showing that the White House threatens the FDA chief's job over vaccine approval.
Absolutely.
So that's probably not great.
What made you think that I was pro-Trump?
I don't think you're pro-Trump. I'm just saying that I recognize that this is a flaw that can happen sometimes. But at the end of the day,
and you don't think that's a legitimate reason for hesitancy to trust the FDA when there's so much political pressure?
It might be hesitancy to hold on. Wait. No, it might be hesitancy with the booster shot or the booster plan. But
I'm gonna say this, and I might be able to attack Fnatic here with the same thing. When I get somebody that wants to ramble a lot and they won't like slow down and do like 1 or 2 points at a time, it makes me feel almost like they've got kind of like a rehearsed chunk, like a whole not a stanza, like a whole bar, would you say? Like what is like in when you do rap, is it like a bar? Bars? What does bar refer to? Does bar refer to like a certain number of lines? Or is each line one bar? A verse. That's what I'm thinking of. It almost feels like you have like a verse memorized and you want to rattle off the whole thing because you can't defend like the individual lines. And so you know that if you just like go off or whatever. Wait, can I take an antiquarian in and win this boss fight? Do you think I could, like, for the final dungeon? Or do you think I'll fuck myself? Because I kind of just want to run this just to get it over with. But I don't want to, but if I can take an antiquarian and sacrifice her to the final boss, that would be, like, cool. Because I don't have to worry about losing somebody.
No. If this gives you hesitancy with the FDA, then my next question would be, why is this internationally recognized as a good vaccine? Even more so, because you did this with the Destiny conversation too. You kept on like alluding to this, like the FDA has had scandals. They're in bed with the pharmaceutical companies. Like, no.
They are, and
which
they're
even if
in
that's
there in
true,
the EMA too.
Even if that's true, it doesn't speak to anything to do with this specific vaccine.
It absolutely does, because
no,
I
it
think
doesn't.
that you could probably agree that this is the highest, most politicized drug ever produced.
And you're playing into that more.
Oh my God. Wait, Wolf Squad, what game is this? This game looks awesome. I'm seeing lots of menus. I'm seeing a lot of numbers in the top left. My autism sensors are going off huge. I see planets and space stuff. What is this? What game is this? Stellaris. Fuck, is that a good game or would I hate it? That sounds like a 4X game. Is that bad? Okay, never mind.
More and more by playing cannon fodder for these anti-vax ideas.
By understanding that, like, for example, when I decided to get vaccinated, it was after FDA approval because I wanted to wait and make sure that they had the time to make their decision, not just the Biden administration struggling to maintain optics during a fucking failed administration.
Gotcha.
When is the When has the Biden administration been like a failed?
So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, for example, did you know about when it was paused? In
Right,
August?
because
that shows that the
blood
FDA
clots.
and that you know how many it was right? There were 6 cases out of the 8 million people who took the vaccine, and the
point
FDA
then?
I'm explaining that the FDA stepped in and put a pause to this to further examine data. That is the system doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So where's the coercion there with the pharmaceutical companies? Why did the FDA...
The FDA is doing a good job trying to push back, but I should also note that Pfizer is right there. This is what's so great about the boosters and with everything really, but this is a perfect example of how pharmaceutical drug approval works, right? So in this case, you had the White House clamoring for boosters and you had Pfizer sitting right there with them clamoring for boosters. But what's weird about that, because obviously they have a financial incentive to put boosters out. Would you agree that they have an incentive at play to put boosters out and produce tons more vaccines?
Why is it that people are too stupid to understand that you need to have incentives on both sides? Like, people only look at incentives on one side and they never look at the other. Like, Pfizer has an incentive to sell you as much medication as possible. That's true. That is Pfizer's incentive, absolutely. But then the incentive on the federal government is to make sure that something is like as safe as possible. Like, their goal is to make you jump through as many hoops as possible in order to get something out that's safe. But this is kind of the negotiation that you play. Like, people will do the same things with like employees and employers. They're like, a boss's job is to pay you the least amount possible for the most work he can squeeze out of you. Well, yeah, of course. An employee's job is to get the most amount of money for the least work possible. Like, these are the negotiations that happen at every stage of everything. Like, you always have negotiating powers on both sides.
Vaccine and get paid for
they're
it.
a pharmaceutical
right?
company, so they have incentives to create
so they
medicine,
have
which is
financial
probably
incentives.
pretty good.
So the most unsettling thing is normally when we have a drug company talking to the FDA, they're like, hey man, look at our drug. It's great. Look at this clinical trial data. Look at the efficacy. It's amazing. Yeah. Well, in this case, we have Pfizer telling the FDA, man, this drug's not very good. It isn't performing well. We need
With the
boosters because
boosters?
the protection is waning.
Does that include what all comes in the Tdap? Does that include, so like every booster ever is like a garbage? So your Tdap is tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis? Those 3? Like, are these all shit vaccines because you need boosters for these, or?
So the drug company's
didn't say
argument
that.
is
This
actually
is
that
another
the drug
lie.
isn't
This is
good.
oh,
No, it's
God.
not.
You
It
do it
absolutely
all the
is. Do you
time.
want
Yes,
the
I don't even.
article?
I recognize that the efficacy wanes, but that's just another like they didn't say, oh, we need boosters. It's not working out so good.
They did.
That's not.
And the
they
FDA,
may have
one
said
of
they
the
need
main
boosters, but they
reasons that
weren't
the
saying
FDA
it didn't work
decided
out.
not to approve the boosters is because they did not acknowledge that the efficacy had waned as badly as Pfizer was presenting it, and that the data
have
that
been-
Pfizer was presenting had not been peer reviewed.
There have been, okay, cool. So there have been various studies done on the efficacy rates of the vaccine over time. And although it does wane a little bit over time, that still means nothing. That's not a reason
Okay.
not to get the vaccine.
No,
and
I
don't
didn't
know why
say
you
it
wanna,
was. I don't know why this is going completely over your
because
head.
No, it's not going over my
I'm
head. It's
trying
that
to
I'm
say
trying to
that
keep you on
Pfizer is
topic and you keep trying to
arguing
move us over to
Pfizer
boosters. And I don't
because
care
it's
about
important.
boosters.
Well, you don't care because you don't know how to counter it because
No, it's
I'm
not I don't
proving
know
a
how to
really
counter it.
good
It's that
point, and so
you
you're
said you
trying
want
to
to talk
pivot
about
away from this
vaccine
because you don't want to
mandates.
get nailed into a corner when I'm
Yep,
trying
you're
to,
right.
to
You're right.
show you that the
You're
drug
right.
companies and the FDA
I've been wrecked.
are
Please continue.
oftentimes
I'm getting
what
wrecked
I'm
right
trying
now.
to show you is, I mean, why else would you be trying to get me off this topic by saying I don't care about? I don't care about that. I don't care about that. Is
Because it
that
doesn't.
really the way you debate? I don't care about that. Okay,
No,
well,
it's that
it's
when we come to
important.
debate vaccines generally and vaccine mandates, when you go to boosters and talk about people leaving because of the booster plan, I just say, okay, then maybe that casts some doubt and some hesitancy on the booster shots and the booster plan. This has
You
nothing.
realize that the boosters are
Hold
the
on.
same
This
drug,
this
right?
has nothing to do with the current vaccines that are available. So
It has everything to do with it. I don't understand.
what does it have to do with
Oh my god.
it?
I'm
does it
I'm
matter?
trying to explain to you, right, that the White House and Pfizer are sitting in a fucking room going, Biden's sitting there going, how can I look better to the American public after I left all those fucking people in Afghanistan? Oh shit.
Oh my god. Can I don't know if I want to watch the rest of this. It's like 40 more minutes. I'm good actually. I can't. I'm sorry. It's too much for me. My brain is Okay.